All right, everybody. Hope you're doing well today. So we're going to try something a little different today. See how it goes. All right. So what we're going to do, I want you to grab a sheet of paper and I want you to make it look like this. All right. You're going to have one section right here, another section right here, and another section right here. So I'll give you guys a second to do that. I'm going to explain. So what we're going to do, we're going to take notes, kind of like an alternative to note taking, on 3 different absolute rulers. All right. Absolutism, we know it is basically the idea that a king has entire control over everything in the state. We're going to kind of look at these 3 kings throughout Europe. We got one in France, one in Prussia, and one in Russia. So let's get started. So the first guy we're going to talk about is this guy named Louis the 14th. So let's write his name up here real quick. Louis-XIV. That is 14 in Roman numerals. So let's get started. So the first thing we need to know is he was the most powerful king in French history. Now, that's not without mistake either, because when you think about it, absolutism is really the cause of these kings having so much power. They have total control over all things. All right? He said this thing, and I'm going to butcher how I say this, but we're going to try it. Let me write it down real quick, and we'll try it out. You can write this down if you want. If you know French, correct me if I say this wrong. L'état, c'est moi. All right? I think I said that okay, but I am from the United States. So anyways, this is a quote that he once said, Louis the 14th right here. And he said this about himself. So if he's saying this about himself and you know he's an absolute ruler, what do you think he's going to say? It actually literally translates to, I am the state. So basically he's saying, look, I am the government. No one else has any control. I am the state. I'm the ruler. I am the whole purpose for what's going on in France. It's me. You only, respond to my wishes and my commands. And that's how he saw himself. He said, L'état c'est moi. All right? Or moi. I don't know how you say that. But anyways, I tried. So, anyways, the next thing you need to realize about him is he became king at 4. That's crazy. Imagine becoming a king at 4 years old. Now, granted, do you think he did all the rule himself at 4 years old? No. Alright? He had somebody helping him out. And the guy he had helping him out was this guy named Cardinal Mazarin. Alright? Or Mazarin, however you say it. I've heard it said both ways. But Cardinal Mazarin, and basically Cardinal Mazarin, his idea was to make the government as big as he could make it. So eventually when this guy comes in charge, he has no problem. And Cardinal Mazarin really paved the way for King Louis XIV to become one of the most powerful leaders of all time. Also, there was a revolt over Cardinal Mazarin, and basically the nobility did not like Louis, alright? Long story. Anyways, you just need to know that the nobles did not like King Louis or Cardinal Mazarin. So when Mazarin dies, Louis has this huge hate for the nobility. So that's a big key to understand. So let's look right here. Here's some things that Louis did for France. Alright, the first thing is he built this palace called Versailles. I'll spell that for you guys. Palace of Versailles. And basically what this palace, its goal to do was to bring the nobility as low as he could get them. What he did is he made all the nobility live at this palace. So they were all worried about the politics within the palace. While Louis stayed in Paris, which is about 11 to 14 miles away maybe. I can't remember the exact number. But anyways, everyone was worried about what was going on in Versailles. And Louis would go over there and kind of mess with them some and make them think that they were really doing something when they weren't. Louis XIV had all the power. Another thing is, guys, he was huge into the arts. That Renaissance stuff, yeah, he liked that stuff too. So Louis, what he did is he patronized. You remember what patronizing means, right? Talks about the Renaissance. That basically means funding the arts. So he was patronizing the arts. So also arts glorified the king. So we'll put that for the glory of the king. So it was all about making sure that the king was glorified and looked good in this art. So they did a lot of art about him, about Louis. Another thing is he fought lots of wars. Now, why do you think he may have fought lots of wars? Well, one reason people fought wars sometimes is because of land. Louis XIV, what he wanted to do, he wanted to make France the most powerful state in Europe. So he fought lots and lots of wars. However, do you think he had any luck? Nope. No luck. Alright, and when you lose a lot of wars, what happens to your money? Your money now gone, son. So, we'll draw a dollar sign. Bang. So they're now in debt. Wait. They're in debt, okay? And then finally, what you need to realize about his legacy. He had a legacy, alright? He was known as the Sun King, alright? And he made France, or abbreviate France, most powerful European country. But with cost. So they became a household name in Europe, but however, they got in lots of debt. So do you think people liked Louis XIV when he was pretty much done? No, they actually celebrated his death. So anyways, let's go back here, and let's go ahead and go and do the second part. Alright, so we're going to talk about this second guy now. He is from Prussia, and his name is Frederick II, also sometimes known as Frederick the Great, because people thought he was what? Great. Alright, so here's how his reign went. Frederick the Great. So there's just a few things we need to know about him. He was all about the military. Military was key. Alright. He thought without a strong military, you could not have a strong government. So he wanted a strong government. And if Frederick had an Instagram, he'd be the type of dude that liked all the puppy pictures. Get this. He likes puppies. He likes cats. Because he was into the arts. He loved music, philosophy, and he loved poetry. Yes, he loved poetry. Sounds a lot like Coach Cox. Alright, but anyways, pretty simple guy. He came in after his father, Frederick I, and his dad was like cray. Alright, his dad was crazy. Alright, but he somehow was able to manage having control over all of Prussia. Let me clarify that too. We'll put of Prussia, so you aren't confused on where he's from, even though we said it already. So he was from Prussia. So let's talk about his reforms a little bit. His father, we said, was crazy, right? Well, here's kind of what his reforms were. His father, Frederick I, he was rough, he was brute, and he was very, very militaristic. He followed his father's footsteps. And basically what he did is he had a strong military. Outside of that, he was a little different than his father too. And the way that he was different than his father is he was very religiously tolerant. So we'll put religious tolerance. He gave people free reign to do as they chose in terms of religion. Also, outside of that, he saw the king as a servant of the state, and that's his exact words if you translate it to English. Servant of the state. So that basically that means, hey, yo, citizens, whatever you need, I got you, man. I am a servant of the state, all right? So that's really what he was hoping to do for his people in Prussia. Compared to how it had been in the past, he really wanted to make the king someone who was going to work for the people, and the people really liked him. So yeah, that's a little bit about him. Alright, so here's kind of where we're at right now. You need to know about these three guys pretty well. So we're going to go to the final one, and honestly, this guy's probably the most interesting because of this right here. Russia. His name is Peter the Great of Russia. If you ever have to guess someone's little nickname that followed them, during this time you can probably just guess the Great, and you'll probably be right. Okay, but Peter the Great of Russia. And he was really an interesting character. So what we need to know about Peter Peter the Goat, as some of y'all may want to call him. All right, he was of this group called the Romanovs. And for those of you who know world history pretty well, or what's about to happen, the Romanovs, they're like the last king group of Russia. They ruled for nearly 300 years, all right? Very interesting topic, and they'll come back up as we get later into world history. Okay, but he was of this reigning group that came after this guy named Ivan the Terrible. You can guess why they called him Ivan the Terrible, because he was terrible, all right? So he was of this group. So I'll go ahead and write his legacy real quick before we get into his reforms. He is the greatest reformer in Russia's history. So, guys, he did do a lot, but also people in Russia, at this time, they were very, very, very set in their ways. Peter is like the first dude who's like, we're actually going to change everything. We're going to change your total way of life. So he's known as the greatest of all time in terms of reformers for Russia's history. So here's some of his reforms. Let's take a look at them. All right, so here's some of his reforms. First, there's this thing called the Tsar. All right, he wasn't the first Tsar. The first Tsar was that dude named Ivan the Terrible. All right, but he increased the power of the Tsar. And what Tsar means, it literally means Caesar. It's Russian for Caesar, but basically what he did is he increased power, and I kind of abbreviated that. All right, but Tsar, power increased. All right, that's one thing that you need to know. Another thing that you need to know is he wanted Russia to be more like Western Europe, so he did this thing called Westernization. He wanted Russia to be more like the West. Now, at this time, Russia, they were still in serfdom when he reigned, and I'm trying to think of the exact years, but basically when he was in charge, Russia was very, 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 as some people would call, backwards, all right? Even though some of y'all still think that, they're not really backwards today, but they are a lot different than the rest of the world. But they were very, very backwards at this time, and Peter saw that and he said, look, we need to do something else. So he did this thing called the Great Embassy. He made this trip out to Western Europe and walked around, and people in Russia hated him over in Western Europe. They called him heretics because they believed different things about the Bible. All right, but he led this thing called the Great Embassy, and then he tried to make Russia more like the West. Another thing is he realized he was having a hard time getting Russians to change, so he took total control. And you'll have to excuse my nose. I have allergies this time of year. Took total control of the Russian Orthodox Church. Yes, all right. Just like these other guys, they saw religion as the most powerful thing in a person's life. So he recognized that. He's like, if I want people to really change, I got to take control of the church. So he did that. Another thing is that he did, check this out, he started newspapers, all right? Yes, he started newspapers. Saw that as a major key for getting people informed in Russia. Also, he had a greater role for women in society. He wanted to promote what women could do in society. So he's really the first that really gave women a way out from home and to get them more involved in society. Along with Westernization, he made people in Russia start to dress different. If you look at old pictures, you see all these people with like beards and stuff. Yeah, they start shaving their beards around this time because he is like, no more beards, man. Beards aren't cool. Beards aren't what's in. Mustaches are what's in. Clean faces are what's in. So shave. Start wearing a tie. Don't wear fur anymore. Okay, stuff like that. Also, he wanted schools. Just like I love school, he loves school. So he opened all these schools for arts and sciences. Yes, schools for arts and sciences. Basically like colleges, all right? And then probably his biggest lasting legacy was this place called St. Petersburg, all right? He fought Sweden for seaports, and eventually created this new town called St. Petersburg. Alright, so guys, it's just a quick little overview of the some of the absolute rulers in Europe at this time, alright? So what you need to know, they all had legacies. Alright, Frederick, big thing about him is he's all about the military. That's probably his legacy. He really wanted militaries to rule his country. As for Louis, he was all about expansion, all about building up the king. And as we know, he got them into a lot of debt. No money equals debt, alright? And then as for this guy, man, he did all sorts of stuff. Okay? But the main thing that I want you to realize about him is he made Russia a little bit more westernized. And he was all about social and political reform. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Here's me with my glasses on, signing off. Y'all have a great day.